Hello, hello, hello. We are going to have a day with dun, 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 some theory. I know we've been doing a ton of theory recently, but we're going to zip through the theory. And at the end of the theory, we're actually going to write some code again, which is pretty exciting. So, hello. We are today halfway through week 6. So, we are 65%, 60-ish percent of the way through the course. And y'all have been absolutely soldiering on. As always, gosh, if you've just wandered in off the internet, hello, lovely to meet you. We're running a free web development bootcamp remotely based around the free Codecamp curriculum for, the web development curriculum. For those of you who've been around for a little while, y'all already know the deal. Hi, I'm Jess. And what we're going to do today is go through some of our notes. I know, tons of notes in theory. Oh, but good news, edited the notes today, so they're fantastic. And what we're going to do is, as you have any questions, chuck them in the chat. We'll go ahead and look at them as we go. If they're questions that are a little bit specific, we'll save them to the end, because many of you watching this are not watching live. You're watching this sort of in your own time, and that's chill. Today, we are talking about size in CSS. CSS sizes have two types of sizes, two types of units, and we've got somebody asking, when can we have a guest session with Edda as a guest? But you know what? I'll try and softly, lovingly encourage her to join me for a couple more classes in the future, maybe, possibly. So we have units of measurement in CSS, and there's two types. A relative unit is relative to something else. It can be the viewport. It can be the parent. But an absolute unit is always the same. I like to say a pixel is a pixel is a pixel. A pixel, just a little tiny bit, but a pixel will always be the same size, while as relative units will scale. For folks who are not me, as we're going on and going through the notes pretty fast so we can go and do some code, why might I care about a relative unit? What kinds of things might relative units of measurement be a better fit for when I'm designing for the web? So a pixel is probably going to be the most frequent one we think about, but other types of absolute units are ones we know out in the world. An inch is an inch is an inch. A centimeter is a centimeter is a centimeter. These are fixed units. They don't change. Most of these, like the points or the picas, we'll see these in print, but it's good to know just for trivia, just in case you have like a pub quiz pop up. So Yuladil's got me saying, hey, we might want to prefer thinking about and designing and laying out our web experiences with these relative units because we want these responsive designs. When we change the size of the viewport, we want to make sure that stuff doesn't get all weird and messed up. We might want to have an absolute unit to say, hey, even when you're responsively changing all of the other elements, don't ever make the text smaller than a set amount. Oh, got a niche question. Mella's saying that they found a post on Stack Overflow saying a pixel can be a different size on different screens. Sorry, did you see me just sort of briefly fall apart? So there might be a really specific setting in which there could be two different sizes for pixels. This is good. If y'all haven't heard the term an edge case yet, an edge case is a problem or a condition or an error that's so specific that usually it's not worth fixing. If I called I don't have an air conditioner in my house, but I like to dream. If I called my air conditioner repair company and I said, hey, The air conditioner won't turn on if I'm holding a blue soda on my head and humming when I push the button. My air conditioner company would probably say, "What?" And then that imaginary air conditioner company would say, "Cool, that's a real specific problem. We're not going to fix that." It may indeed be that it's possible for a pixel to be practically slightly different sizes, but generally speaking, I don't know. And I'm going to say, we're going to think about a pixel being a pixel being a pixel. Yeah, being static. I'm going to go ahead and make myself a note, and I'm going to look this up in my own time afterwards. So here, it's possible that that could be true, but I've never heard of that. And I'd like to do some research in my own time. So, what about percentages in CSS? Love it, love it, love it. We are pretty familiar with percentages. 5%, 10%, 50%. We know percentages, we're fine. Here, we can use percentages as a unit. Yeah. When we define a percentage, we're talking about the percentage of the parent element that it takes up. So here, let's look at this. We've got a div class of container, rad, and a div class of box, rad. And here, let me zoom this out a little bit. Can we all see all of this on the screen, I hope? Let's do a little sort of quick and dirty math, or maths if you live here. The container is 400 pixels wide, and that's an absolute unit. So a pixel is a pixel is a pixel, except there might be some really, really specific times where a pixel is not, and we'll look this up in a minute. So our container element, our parent element, is 400 pixels wide by 200 pixels high. Okay. But our box element is 50% of its parent element wide. Can somebody tell me how wide in pixels, please? How wide in pixels would the box be? And similarly, this box is 100% of the height of the parent element. How tall, how high is the box div going to be in pixels? Yeah, I'll, because that's a terrible lag, I'll give you all a little second to catch up with that. And while we wait for lag, we'll bump on along. These percentages can be really, really useful if you want things to stay relative sized to their parents. If I say, cool, I've got a sidebar on my website, I want it to always be about a fifth of the total parent space. I want all of that beautiful white space to be over here. I want about a fifth of it to be the sidebar. I know I can set the size, the width, to 20%? Yeah, 20% is a fit. And flexible images can be a really good place to use percentage values. When we're looking at our images, we say, hey, I want to set the max width of this image to 100% to make sure that it scales down, but doesn't try and get deformed and stretched out. Scalable typography can also be great. So it's a little less common, but saying, hey, I want this font size to be such and such a percent of the parent element can be a really good way to keep the font size and the parent element sort of in sync, sort of vibing together. And I'm so sorry, I'm smiling because this is super duper cursed. Aligning elements, so getting things to stay on the page exactly where you want them to is, do you know what, I'm not going to say it's hard because there's a good chance you all will do a much better job at this than I will, but it's something I always find really, really challenging. Using these percentages can be really, really valuable for making sure things stay roughly where we planned on them. Here we've got a div class, a div with a class of centered, and the centered class has some things going on. Wow. Okay, the transform property, we're going to ignore this for right now. And you could tell that Etta wrote these notes because she's so helpful to say, look, 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 we haven't seen the transform property yet. That's weird. We're definitely going to see it later. But here, it goes ahead and tells us the top 50% is what we're looking at. And I'm going to ask y'all to go ahead and, and Mel's like, yes, let's do transform right now, and giving us a hint that transform moves stuff around. We'll wait for it. We'll wait for it. Transform will be really, really fun. So here we've got another really good example, and I'm going to let y'all play with this on your own. Nesting elements within percentage-based dimensions can get kind of weird. If I say that my, let's come all the way back up to the top, not to the top. So here we've got this div class of container and the class of box. The width of the box is going to be 50% of its parent element. So the parent width is 400. We've got 200 pixels. The challenge here is if I decide to change the size of the container class element, I've got to remember that my box element is going to go ahead and change with it. So it's really, really nice to have this option, but you've got to kind of remember that, hey, I used a percentage here. So when I do something weird to the parent, it impacts all of the children. What are M's and Rams? What are M's and Rams? You're going to see M a lot, and you're going to see Rem a lot. And these are really, really fun elements because they're really easy to forget and they're really easy to confuse. M is a unit of measurement relative to the font size of the parent element. It's okay. It's okay. This sounds weird. By default, these are going to be relative to the font size of the HTML element. So the default font size for the whole page. And if you said, I don't know what this is, it's cool. It's cool. Everything's cool. I mean, everything's stressful, but this is fine. If you don't set any font size, by default, the font size on that root element is 16 pixels. Oh, excuse me. Sorry. So perfect. Eulito said this before I did, and saying, when we're talking about rem for font sizes, rem is for the root M. So rem elements are going to determine the font sizes, and using rem is really exciting because if your users change the font sizes, maybe you've got somebody who's my age, and I've changed my and I have indeed changed my font size on the browser on my phone. This means by using rem, it means that you're going to respect that change, that specification when it comes in. We've got a question. Oh, Mel's asking, okay, but if I'm looking to use M or rem, is it better to use M for white space and rem for text? Very generally, yeah, this is a really good way to remember it. M for the empty space, rem for, oh, remember, this is for your text. So by default, the font size for the root element is 16 pixels, but by using rem and m, we've got the opportunity to have that change either when we change the font size or when our users do, both of which are really, really cool. M units can be really useful for defining sizes like buttons to make sure that the margins and the padding scale proportionally. So let's say you design a whole site. It's beautiful. It's perfect. All of your buttons look amazing. Good for you. You're doing better than I would do. But very last thing you do is you say, oh, my boss said we need to make the font a little bit bigger on this. So you change the font size and boom, oh, nothing is laid out quite right anymore. But if you've used M for this, when you change that font size, everything's going to go ahead and scale along. Okay, we've got 2 more units and we'll do them really fast. View height. We were talking about percentages as a percentage of the parent element, but here we've got a really, really responsive parent of elements. The viewport relative units are going to change. They're going to be a percentage of the user's viewport. And a viewport is whatever your user is looking at your website through. So if your user is on a desktop computer or a laptop computer, if your user's on a computer with a monitor, the viewport is going to be the size of the browser window. And as that, we can change it. Oh, wait, hang on. What happens does it look weird? Yeah. So the same way I can change the viewport here and you'll see things move responsively. We can take here, the viewport height is much smaller than the viewport height is now. Yeah, so viewport height, how much window people have to look at, how much window height folks have in their browser or on their phone or on their tablet. And viewport width is similarly how much width they have to look at. Some websites have a section that fills the entire window, which I often find a bit overwhelming. And if you want something to fill the entire window, weird, not weird. There's some designs that make this make sense. In that case, you would say 100% viewport height, 100% viewport width is going to take up everything on your page. Here, if you did this and brought the CSS over, you would see this take up, boom, the entire hacking page. So remember that using VH can sometimes, make the layout a little bit weird for small screens if the browser bar for some browsers disappears. And I don't really love, and Etta was really nice to grab this and put this in the notes. Do you know what? It's not a stunningly good idea to set a font size with view width, just because if the view width on a little tiny screen, if you've set the font size to a percentage of the view width on a phone, it's going to be really small. And if you're looking at it on a huge, huge screen, that's maybe going to take up way more text than you need. Calc functions. Oh, does viewport height and viewport width include the window header, like the tabs and etc.? I believe that it doesn't, unless something has gone a little bit silly with the layout. So it should, the viewport height, width and height should include the part of the viewport which your user can view your page in, and not the sort of address bar and all this and all that, unless something's gone a little bit wrong, which happens sometimes. Things can go wrong in beautiful, exciting ways. So we're going to talk briefly about functions. Functions. Functions are a concept in programming where the piece of code we have performs an action to get to a response. Those of you who've gone on to do some JavaScript or some Python or might do that next, you're going to get pretty familiar with different types of functions. We're going to learn a couple of them in CSS, and even though everything's stressful and it can't really hurt us. So, here, oh, do you know what? Etta described this much better than I did. I said, a function is a piece of thing that does a thing, but Edda has helpfully pointed out that a function is a block of code that performs a task. We can pass in arguments, the values to the function as inputs, and then we call the function, usually by saying its name, with the parentheses, and putting those arguments inside the parentheses. Let's have a look. Oh. Yep, where? Okay, and Sunny's like, hey, what's the difference between setting a value for HTML versus root? Not a problem. This is a really, really good question. And root is the entire document, whereas HTML is the HTML element. Root has a higher level of specificity, but generally speaking, for a lot of different types of use cases, the behavior you're going to get is going to be really, really similar. Oh, sorry, I thought cats scratching at the door. So here, we've got sort of some pseudocode. Oh gosh, is pseudo Latin for fake or false? I'm not gonna look at the Greek, drat. I was so pleased thinking I had gotten it right, and pseudo sounds more Greek than Latin. Drat. So pseudo is a word that means fake or false. And here we've got a little piece of pseudocode. This is showing us how a function looks. So here, function, argument 1, argument 2. This isn't real code that'll run, but what we do have is the syntax for how a function will look. So the calc function is going to be laid out just like this. And it's going to take one argument, which is expression. Okay, stressful again, but Edda's so helpful. Edda's like, hey, the same way we can think about a function as a block of code that performs a task, an expression is a piece of reasoning or a piece of information that produces a value. And this is going to make more sense in a second. Inside the calc function, we're going to pass in as arguments addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division operators. Check it out like this. We've got hello world. Okay, this HTML isn't that important for us. But check this out. This div, actually, not just this div, but every single div on our page, unless there are other overriding conflicts. So all the divs on my page are going to have white color for the text. They'd have Rebecca purple for the background color. And the width, we haven't set this to an absolute, we haven't set this in pixels. And we haven't even set this to a relative unit. We've set it to the result of the calc function. 50% of the parent element, but that amount minus 20%. So here, if the parent element, here is, I'm going to make it easy, 200 pixels wide, this calc function will subtract 20 pixels from half of the parent element's width. That would be that'd be 100. So here we got 200 pixels. Sorry, I'm just writing this out in the chat. So here, if we say, if the parent is 200 pixels wide, then 50% of the parent is 100 pixels. And then we subtract 20 pixels to get 80 pixels wide for our divs. Gosh. And Guinness makes a real solid point here to be like, hey, cute, cool, whatever. Yes, we can do math in CSS. Why would we do this? So, a couple different reasons. Let's say that maybe you're a teacher or you're designing curriculum and you want to preview that we're going to be learning more functions and you want to start out with a really concrete function. That might be one reason why we're learning this. But the point of the calc function here in CSS is if we want to add some logic to say, hey, I've already got a built-in way to make an element 50% the size of its parent. Here, I can say, make it any kind of combination of the results of a math problem. Yeah, while we work, I'm going to try and think of some examples where I might use this. I very rarely use this in my own CSS. I'm struggling a bit to be like, I'd use this when? I'm like, I personally don't use it very often. And Mel's previewing to be like, look, maybe we don't want to use it in this context that much, but we're going to learn about transform elements and they're going to be weird. So right now, I might not do a ton of this day to day myself, but starting to think about these functions in a really soft way might be really useful. So here's some examples which Ed has helpfully brought out to say, hey, do you know what? I might use this when I want to make sure that I'm surrounding things with enough white space. Oh, maybe if you want to, oh gosh, and when you're specifying 0, make sure to say 0 and then the unit, like pixels. And we get for multiplication and division, one of the operands has to be unitless. So you can't multiply 10 pixels by 10 pixels. You can multiply 10 pixels by 10. Oh gosh, do you know what? Okay, it was being over like, hey, when would I use this? When would I use this? And you all can tell when it's Edda in the chat. And it was like, Jess, come on. You'd use this for dynamic sizing of elements, but like, I might personally, I still don't use a lot. Mel has asked another really specific question, which is, does the dividing operator handle dividing by 0? I do not know. And I will instead throw that question back to you and ask you to test that and report back to the class if it's not a bother. Cool. In the review, we've learned a whole bunch of things real fast. And I'm not getting rid of you. As I say this, oh gosh, I wouldn't. It's very dark, isn't it? I'm not getting rid of you. You're not going to live on a farm someplace. Everything's okay. Let's talk about what we've covered really quickly in the section, and then let's go write some code, yeah? So really quickly, we've learned about the difference between relative and absolute units. Cool. And we've taken a look at different types of relative and absolute units, the M's and the rems and percentages and the viewport height and the viewport width. And we've previewed the calc function. Let's build an event flyer. Let's actually write some code, all right? And because I'm a terrible person, we're only going to write a little bit of code and I will abandon you because what we're going to ask is for you to make, I know, I'm always saying, make something creative, make something that feels like you. We're going to ask you to build an event flyer for something that is very you. For folks who are, gosh, do Do you know what? I think this might be very old-fashioned slang, but have y'all heard the phrase on brand? I would love for this project, please try make something that's very, very you. So something very on brand. And do you know what? For me, oh, okay. I'm going to get a little bit more space. And I cannot be too hypocritical, can I? I've just told you to be creative. I've told you to do something that's very, very you. So I should probably pick something that's very, very me. Oh, you all probably already know this. I'm really excited about languages, and I'm terrible at languages. So I study and I just do a bad job, and I have a nice time doing a bad job. And I love teaching a boot camp with you all. So it's not to celebrate, but to sort of get over how sad I'm going to be when the boot camp ends. The week after the boot camp, I have an intensive language class for a brand new language which I haven't studied before. So I'm going to, we've got, I'm going to make a header element. I'm going to make a event flyer for a study event for the language that I'm going to be studying in July, just for a week, just for a really good intensive. A header element should have an H1 in it. And, okay, so the H1 should be the same as the title. So the title here is build an event page, and I'm going to change the title to Northern Welsh Language Study Meetup. So I'm going to be, oh gosh, do you know what? I don't want to get too sidetracked because I love to get sidetracked. But, so Welsh is a revival language. And the Welsh government actually teaches really, really high quality, really good Welsh language classes online. I was pretty excited to see them. Actually, we'll just say Welsh language study meetup. Oh, let's be honest with ourselves. Beginners Welsh. Ha 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 ha. So we can use an image if we want, but we don't have to. We want a main element in our body. And I really like these projects because we've been doing CSS for a while, and this gets us sort of back on track. It says, and when I say back on track, I mean, we spent all that time learning HTML. It would be really, really cruel to then focus on CSS and not keep writing it with HTML. We've got somebody asking why I'm learning Welsh. A bunch of my friends are Welsh speakers, and it's a really interesting language. The language policy for teaching Welsh is really interesting. I've just clicked to format this. Our section elements. I'm going to add some IDs here. Oh, the ID is I'm going to have ID for explainer and event details. Maybe this is going to ask me to change these around, but let's wait and see. Our section elements should each have an H2 in. I can do that. Here we're going to add an H2. And really, this doesn't feel very exciting yet, does it? I'm just sort of building out the structure of this. I'm going to add the content in later. I'm going to continue to format the document as we go. H2. about the event, where and when. So let's go ahead and let's run some of our tests because I think some of these tests are going to pass already, and it's going to feel pretty satisfying. Not all of them, not all of them. We're getting a hey, 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 you should fix this. But okay, so we've got these. We've got a header element. We should have an image as the first child in our header. Okay. Hmm. That's before the H1. Oh, and that is it's a void element, isn't it? It's self-closing. Let me grab this image and see what that is so I can write good alt text. Oh, hmm, hmm. This is kind of a judgment call. Would I want to, and this is an actual question, I don't have a good answer yet. This image, oh, wait, hang on. This is, so first I'll ask you a question that's a little bit of quiz question, and then I've got a question that I want to reflect on. When is the only time that we do not have to write good alt text for our images? Can anybody tell me of like an excuse or a time where you do not have to write good alt text for your images? And this is not a trick question. There are actually times you don't have to. And if you tell me that, I will then ask my follow-up question. So I'm going to check our code. Christina, after my own heart. Christina's like, look, 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 look. If that image is purely decorative, and Lucy's got it too. Lucy's like, if that image is just decoration. Learner's like, if you've got an icon image, so something that contains the context in another way, or if it's purely decorative. And I'd go a step further and say, hey, Euladil, you're literally took it out of I say, hey, if we think that this image is truly decorative and we don't want to have this announced to screen reader users, would we want to? And just as I was about to say it, Euladil's like, hey, if you're not adding this alt text, you better use the aria hidden to hide that completely decorative content. Stunning, stunning, stunning. A image showing bright banners and flags. So yeah, personally, and actually I don't have to say an image showing, the folks using assistive technology will know that, bright banners and flags. Yeah, so I probably want to think a bit about, oh, is this something that I actually want to make sure folks, yeah, is this important enough where folks using assistive technologies will want to see it or want to be able to access the information from it. So we've got a little bit of this broken up. Let's start writing some CSS. And I'm going to, goodbye HTML. As I write the CSS, I'm going to dismiss. So up here at the top, you can tab your different files and focus on just one at a time. Here, our body should have a, ooh, heck. Is it padding top is 50 pixels. Did that work? Oh, wait, let me actually write that correctly. Top and bottom padding. Okay. Hmm. You're not going to tell me how much padding I should have right and left, are you? Oh gosh, yes. I'm so sorry. It's a semicolon, not a comma. What a day! What a whole day, y'all. It was Etta backstage. We are like, Jess, Jess, that's a really basic thing. And okay, so it is padding top and padding bottom. What's another way? Hmm. What is another way I could do padding top and padding bottom? Padding top, padding bottom. My body element should. Yeah, you little makes a really solid point. And this is something I was Mel's way ahead of me and saying, hey, if we want to set the top and the bottom to be the exact same, we could set those to 50 pixels, which will set the top and bottom, but we also need to set the right and left. And here, body should have, yeah, let's set it to auto, huh? Oh gosh, I need to be in the right thing. Let's set that to 50 pixels. And then let's set it to auto, just to say, look, go ahead and center that padding for now. It didn't, let me check my code. Oh, heck. I should also write this correctly, huh? Let's see if you like that. Okay, look. Padding, 50 pixels, auto. What am I doing today? Hmm. My body element, 50 pixels. You know what? I'm going to set it to 50 pixels all around and just see if we're okay with that. You little. Every day. Every day I wake up and I'm me. Every day I wake up and I'm me. By which I mean, y'all, you are very, very patient with me waking up every single day and making the goofiest possible mistakes. Thank you very, very much. So I was pretty sure, and we've got styles.css. Oh, oh, oh. And somebody in the chat is like, oh, Jess is going to start having nightmares about this. The good news is, if you do this long enough, you get so used to making the same goofy mistakes every single day that it can't even hurt you anymore. Okay, we've got that set. So here, our user stories don't tell us what our right and left padding are. But here, when we set padding, we've set our padding all over to 50, 50, 50, 50. I'm going to set it to 0 pixels on the right and left. I can add it there. Say auto for like, hey, put that stuff balanced in the middle. Let's go ahead and do our margin as well while these are listening to each other. Everything's terrible, but terrible things can't hurt us. We should have a top and bottom of 0 pixels, 0 pixels, 0%. I mean, 0, 0. So, and a right and left margin that centers itself. Can I do this without specifying? My body element should have a top and bottom padding. My body element does have a top and bottom padding, 50 pixels. Why are you being like this? Okay, thank you. Everything is terrible. But terrible things can't hurt us. So the next thing it wants us to do is we want to set our width relative to the width of the viewport. So the viewport is going to be here, for example, where I see it in the preview. We're we're going to go ahead and explicitly set that width within the body element. And it's not telling us, I don't think it tells us what size to have, but just that we should use a size that's set using a relative unit of measurement that relates to the viewport. Okay, so I could say 100 viewport width. And this is saying, boom, please. Yep, absolutely correct. Thank you so much, so much. So when I say 100% viewport width, what I'm really saying is 100% of that user's viewport, please. Let's check our code on that. Everything's terrible, but nothing can hurt us. So remember, generally, if we're talking about viewport height or viewport width, by default, 1 equals 1%. Wait, not by default, 1 each. So if I wanted to set something to 50% of the viewport width, I would say 50 viewport width. Oh gosh, wait, why am I showing you in the chat? We can just do that now. Say 50%. Boop. And she just boops right down. And check our height. Yeah. Here, we're going to set a minimum height. And we're going to use calc here. Okay. Scary, but it can't hurt us. I mean, it might be able to. We've set minimum height, and we're going to set that to 100 viewport height. So 100% of the height of our user's viewport, but add that 100 pixels sort of padding. Well, not padding, because we're going to push it down so that it's 100% of the viewport height, but that extra 100 pixels. Everything's terrible, but it's terrible in a way that can't really hurt us. So how far the way through this have we gotten? We've got our header. Wait, hang on. Let's look at both of our code. A goodbye preview. Here we do have a header element. Gosh, let's check our code so we get those really satisfying little tick, tick, ticks. So far we've just gone real fast through this and learned the brutal hard reminder that we do indeed in this project need to link our CSS, that we do have a header element. We've got an image element as the first child. And that seems like that's going to trip some folks up, and it almost got me. That being the first child of the header element means it needs to be boop, the first thing in that header element. So before the H1, we should only have one H1 element because, dun, 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 you should only have one H1 on your page. Oh, and our H1 element is the second child in the header. Okay. H1 should be the same as the title of your event. We should have a main element in our body. We've got it, we've got it. We should have at least 2 section elements. We've got that. Each of them should have an H2. I've added these IDs because I'm probably gonna want to style those out a bit, but it's fine. Our H2 elements shouldn't be empty. Our body elements do indeed, if we come back to the CSS, have a top and bottom padding of 50. And do you know what? They also have a right and left padding of 50 here. Oh, I see a really interesting question that I'm going to get to in a second. And by getting to it, I'm going to check and experiment. So I see a really good question, and we're going to experiment. We're going to get weird. Oh, and I'm going to grab the documentation. So. What else? We've got a top and bottom. Where are you? We've got a top and bottom margin of 0. And the auto is going to center that. Our body, set the width using a viewport width, and we can set that however we want. And the calc in here. There's only a couple more left to do in order to just get your test to pass. But just getting your test to pass, passing is passing is passing. If you just do enough to pass your tests, cool. But the whole point of learning all these skills is to make silly, weird, beautiful things. I would love, love, love to see y'all making silly, weird, beautiful things. If you've got the time to do more than just the just the yeah. If you're busy, get the test to pass, and that's okay. If not, yeah, let's experiment a little bit and build something silly with our time. Sunny's asking, okay, so a function seems pretty powerful. We can do things. We can run logic using these functions. Could I use calc to set the size of an element in relation to the other element? So, for example, the width is equal to um, the element that has the ID of cookie. That's a terrible ID. Don't. Minus 10 pixels. Let's see. So here, oh, 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 ho, ho, ho. Sorry. So, yes, in an indirect way, I'm grabbing this. So if I wanted to, or if you wanted to, do some math or maths using the calc with a that references the size of another value that's preset, we'd want to go ahead and use variables. Variables, I've got a fun way to teach these. When we get to these, we're just previewing for now. A variable is a reference for a value. And we're going to learn about these soon. So I think if I wanted to do what you're describing, which is, gosh, yeah, I think if I want to do what you're describing, which is set the value to be a calculation function run on the value of another element, like referencing that, I think we'd probably want to set the values of that element as a variable. So, yes, but with a little bit of extra difficult wiggling, if that's okay. So, yes, we are going to learn about variables. We are going to learn about variables in the cutest possible way. And we're going to learn about variables when we do CSS animations. So I'm really, really sorry to be like, yes, but we're not going into the details right now. Variables are going to be what helps us here. So here we've got a question. So it means that the minimum height, oh gosh, this is a really, really good one. So this is here, ooh, I like this question. So if we have the minimum height set to, yeah, and let's come back to our tab with this. The same way I never loved math problems at school. But what I would always do is slow down and talk through them. So the question here is, what does it mean? So when we're talking about the minimum height is set to the calculation of. So let's talk through what this means out loud. Oh, and let's turn this into a sentence. I've got the text here. And we're in the body element. The body element should have a height that is never smaller than 100, that is never smaller than 100 pixels less than the full size of the viewport. Yeah, whenever you're looking at one of these functions, I really like to go through and talk them out. So here that the minimum height means that the minimum height of the content being shown on the page. So when the body is being displayed, the minimum height that it will be displayed in is going to be the whole viewport minus that 100 pixels. Yeah, sorry, that is a weird process to say, hey, when we go through one of these functions, talking it out and writing it as a little piece of prose, a little sentence, is something I quite like. Something that you all will not like, you might have kind of already gotten the cadence in your heart of, hey, Thursdays and Fridays, we get the really good instructor. We get Carmen on Thursdays and Fridays. We don't have to deal with Jess. And generally that's true. But Carmen has an engagement tomorrow, and you all you all have to deal with me again tomorrow, please. And you all have to deal with me again tomorrow when we're talking about pseudo classes and pseudo elements. Yeah, we're going to be talking about real fake classes. Pseudo classes are classes that are really only real when there are certain conditions. And pseudo elements are elements that are sort of really only real in certain conditions. This sounds super duper weird. This sounds extremely weird. And I'm going to do a really bad job explaining it, which I'm excited to. So please, before I give you any more really silly ways to parse this, I'm going to ask if you've got the time. There's a lot of reading. But they're teeny tiny. They're teeny. Look. Check it. Little. Am I lying to you? No, these are a lot of examples. Oh no, it's not teeny tiny. It's not as short as I want. Okay, these aren't the shortest, so there is quite a bit of reading. These were shorter in my mind. Please read these and take your own notes before I try and explain them to you tomorrow, because I will probably explain them in the worst possible way. If it's okay, y'all are grown people don't have homework. Please read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different bits of theory reading. Y'all, that's so much. But then we are going to do something I'm really excited for, because this is so old school web. We are going to look at an assignment to build an e-greeting card. These were very popular right around 1998. They continued on for a year or two, but these were real specific back in the day when people were still excited about email. So I'm going to lovingly, oh gosh, we have a question asking how I am so consistently optimistic. Wait, hang on. Solo work first. Y'all are grown, y'all don't have homework, but doing this solo work first is going to make it easier to review tomorrow. Oh, and Mel's saying that they made something like this for their partner for Valentine's Day. Oh, that's so cute. Wait. And on the outro, somebody's asking how I consistently say so optimistic. I have a bird feeder on my balcony where we have little tiny green parrots who scream and scream and scream, and I have horrible cats that scream and scream and scream. So really, I get to be very optimistic because I also offset that with horrible screaming in my life. And sometimes when I'm not teaching, I have a little scream myself as well. So please have a look at your solo work and be as gentle with yourselves as you can. And if you need to have a little scream, yeah, I respect it. I will see you tomorrow, and y'all will get wonderful, fantastic, talented, much more sensible Carmen on Friday. Carmen always remembers to link her CSS in her HTML, doesn't she? I bet she does. Until then, please stay as optimistic as your hearts allow and scream as necessary. Goodbye, my loves.